The snow gently blanketed the small town of Pineville, turning the streets into a winter wonderland. Christmas lights flickered in nearly every window, casting a warm glow in the crisp night. The air was filled with the sweet scent of roasted chestnuts, mingling with the fresh, earthy smell of pine trees. But in one quiet corner of the town, there was a very different scene. Near a flickering street lamp at the edge of Main Street, sat Jack, a man with kind, weathered eyes and hands rough from years of hard work. His coat, once a deep brown, now looked worn and thin, barely enough to keep out the biting cold. He held a cardboard sign that simply read, "Anything helps." At his side was a small, scruffy dog, curled up for warmth, sharing the little heat they had between them. It was Christmas Eve. For most people, it was a night of joy, of family gatherings and festive cheer. But for Jack, it was just another reminder of everything he'd lost. He had once had a warm home, a steady job, and a daughter whose laughter had filled his days. But life, as it often does, had thrown him a curveball. Now he was on the streets with only memories of better days. The crowd around him bustled, hurried on their way, arms full of gifts and hearts full of plans. No one seemed to notice Jack, as if he was invisible. But he wasn't bitter. Instead, he sat quietly watching the world go by, holding on to a quiet hope that things might one day change. And then, something unexpected happened. A sleek electric car pulled up across the street. The hum of the engine softened, and a tall man stepped out. He had a sharp yet friendly face, dressed simply in a black jacket. He looked around as though searching for someone. Jack didn't recognize the man, but the way he carried himself drew the attention of those nearby. People whispered, pointing in his direction. Jack hesitated, unsure if he should approach. The man's gaze swept across the street, landing on Jack. A smile spread across his face, and without hesitation he walked straight toward him. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Who was this man? And why was he walking towards him? What happened next would change Jack's life forever, but little did he know that this Christmas Eve would be one he'd never forget. The life before the streets. Jack never imagined that his life would take the turn it did. A few years ago, his life was everything he had ever wanted. He was a mechanic working at a small garage just outside Pineville. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a job he loved. His hands were always busy fixing cars, keeping the locals' vehicles in top shape for the long, snowy winters and the messy spring rains. It wasn't a job that made him rich, but it provided for his family and gave them the security they needed. He had a wife, Emily, whose laughter echoed through their modest home. Emily was the heart of the household. She baked the best pies, sang while she worked, and could always find a way to make their home feel warm and inviting. Jack still remembered the sound of her voice in the kitchen, humming softly as she made dinner. Then there was Lily, their 6-year-old daughter. Lily had a way of lighting up any room, with her endless energy and bright, curious eyes. She loved drawing pictures, always of their little family, and covering the fridge with them using magnets shaped like hearts and stars. Those small, innocent moments, like Sunday morning pancakes with Lily getting syrup everywhere or working on the truck while Emily brought him lemonade, were Jack's favorite memories. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full of love. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. The first blow. But everything changed when Emily fell ill. At first, it seemed like the flu, nothing to be too concerned about. But as days passed, her condition worsened. The doctor's visits became more frequent, and the medical bills started piling up. Jack worked double shifts, fixing cars late into the night, hoping it would be enough to keep up with the mounting costs. But nothing could prepare him for the worst. Emily's illness turned out to be far more serious than anyone had expected. Her health continued to decline rapidly, and despite their best efforts, she passed away one cold December evening. Jack was devastated. Losing Emily was like losing the anchor that kept everything in place. Losing it all. Jack tried to keep things together for Lily, but the weight of grief and the financial strain was too much. The house they had worked so hard to build was taken from them. The bank foreclosed, and Jack and Lily found themselves with nowhere to go. They had to move into a shelter, a temporary fix that wasn't much of a home. It was a hard place for a little girl like Lily, surrounded by strangers and uncertainty. Jack did his best to shield her from the harsh reality. He told her stories at night, tales of magical places where everything always turned out okay. He found odd jobs where he could, hoping to get back on his feet, but stable work was hard to come by. Over time, even the shelter could no longer keep them. Jack had no choice but to take to the streets. Through all of this, one thing kept Jack going: hope. He never stopped believing that things could get better, that if he kept trying he could somehow build a better life for Lily. His prayers at night weren't for himself, they were always for her. His dream was simple: to give her a warm bed, a safe home, and the chance to be a kid again. A moment of kindness. One memory that stayed with Jack through it all was the time a stranger, a woman in a red coat, handed him a coffee and a sandwich. She didn't say much, just smiled and wished him luck, but the gesture gave Jack something to hold on to. It was a reminder that there were still good people in the world, that kindness still existed, even in the most unlikely places. That small act of kindness kept Jack going, gave him the strength to face each new day. And now, on Christmas Eve, with Lily temporarily staying with a kind neighbor who had taken her in, Jack found himself once again sitting alone under a dim street lamp with his dog by his side, quietly praying for a better future. He had no idea that this Christmas Eve would be the night that everything changed, when his quiet prayers would finally be answered in a way he never could have imagined. The man with the friendly face walked toward Jack with calm but purposeful steps. His eyes were sharp, yet kind, as though he'd seen a lot of the world but hadn't lost his humanity. He stopped a few feet away, crouching to Jack's level. "Hey there," the man said, his voice warm and steady. "Cold night, isn't it?" Jack nodded, unsure of how to respond. It wasn't every day someone stopped to chat, let alone someone who had such a presence about them. "What's your name?" the man asked, a soft smile on his face. Jack answered, his voice cautious. "And this here's Max," he added, patting the scruffy dog curled up beside him. "Jack and Max," the man said, smiling wider. "Nice to meet you both. I'm Elon." Jack blinked. The name sounded familiar, but he couldn't place it. You need directions or something?" he asked, still unsure of the situation. Elon chuckled softly. "No, I'm not lost. I'm here because I want to help." Jack looked at him, a little confused. "Help? Why me?" Elon's eyes softened. "Because everyone deserves a second chance. And tonight, I have a feeling you could use one." Before Jack could reply, a commotion broke out across the street. An older man had slipped on an icy patch, his shopping bags scattering across the pavement. Without thinking, Jack jumped to his feet and dashed across the road. "Sir, are you all right?" Jack called, rushing to the man's side. The older man winced, clutching his ankle. "I think I twisted it," the man groaned. Jack quickly knelt beside him, setting Max's leash down. "Let's get you off the ice," he said, steadying the man with ease. Years of physical labor had made Jack strong, and he used that strength now to help the man onto a nearby bench. "Thank you," the man said, his voice shaky. Jack waved off the gratitude. "No problem. I'll call someone to help." But the man shook his head, looking down at his phone. "I don't have anyone nearby. My daughter lives hours away." Jack hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure what to do, but his instincts kicked in. "Then I'll stay with you. Make sure you're okay until you can get home." For the next half hour, Jack stayed by the man's side, talking to him and offering reassurance. He even shared the blanket he carried for Max, wrapping it around the older man's shoulders to keep him warm. When the ambulance finally arrived, Jack helped the man inside, making sure the paramedics knew everything they needed to. As the ambulance pulled away, Jack stood up and turned to find Elon still watching from a distance, his arms crossed. "That was quite something," Elon said, his voice full of admiration. Jack shrugged, rubbing his cold hands together. "I just did what anyone would do." Elon raised an eyebrow. "Not everyone would. You put a stranger's needs above your own, even when you've got so little yourself." Jack glanced down, his cheeks flushing. "It's what my wife would have done. She always said that kindness doesn't cost anything." Elon nodded slowly as if he understood. "Well, Jack, tonight your kindness might just come full circle." Jack furrowed his brow, still confused. "What do you mean?" Elon reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card, handing it to Jack. "Let's just say this is the start of something good. Meet me tomorrow at this address." Jack looked at the card, still unsure whether this was real. The address on it was for a fancy building downtown. "Why?" Jack asked, his voice cautious. Elon smiled. "Because people like you deserve a chance to rebuild. Trust me, Jack. Just show up." With that, Elon gave Jack a firm handshake before walking back to his car. Jack stood there, the card still in his hand, heart pounding. He didn't know what to expect the next day, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of hope, something that had been missing for far too long. A life-changing moment. The next morning, Jack stood outside a towering glass building, clutching the card Elon had given him the night before. Max, his loyal dog, wagged his tail as if he knew something good was about to happen. Jack, on the other hand, wasn't so sure. His fingers shook as he gripped the card, doubt creeping in. Was this a mistake? Had he been too hopeful? Maybe Elon was just another person making empty promises. But then, the lobby doors opened, and a young woman in a sleek suit approached him. "You must be Jack," she said with a genuine smile. "And this must be Max. Mr. Musk is expecting you." Jack blinked, the name finally clicking in his mind. Elon Musk. He couldn't believe it. Before he could speak, she motioned for him to follow. "Right this way." The elevator ride felt like the longest minute of Jack's life. As the doors opened, he was led into a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering an impressive view of the city. And there, standing near the desk, was Elon, casually dressed, yet exuding an air of calm confidence. "Jack," Elon greeted warmly, extending his hand. "Glad you made it?" Jack shook his hand, still stunned into silence. Max barked once, wagging his tail, and Elon chuckled. "I hope you don't mind," Elon said, gesturing to a seat. "I looked into your story after we met." Jack hesitated before sitting down, his mind racing. "I don't understand," he said finally. "Why are you doing this?" Elon leaned forward, his expression serious. "Last night I saw something in you, something rare. You didn't hesitate to help that man even though you've been through so much yourself. That kind of selflessness is exactly what this world needs more of." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "I was just doing what anyone would do." Elon smiled, shaking his head. "Maybe, but not everyone does. I've spent my career recognizing potential, Jack. And I see it in you. That's why I want to give you a fresh start." Elon slid a folder across the desk. Jack opened it cautiously, his eyes widening as he saw the offer inside. It was a real life-changing offer. A job at one of Elon's companies, complete with training and housing. This can't be real," Jack stammered, looking up in disbelief. "It's very real," Elon assured him. "You'll be working with some of the brightest minds out there. And Max." He nodded toward the dog. "He'll have a yard to run around in and a warm bed every night." Tears welled up in Jack's eyes as he tried to process the magnitude of it all. "Why me?" he whispered. "Because everyone deserves a second chance," Elon replied simply. "And you've earned yours." Just as Jack was about to respond, the door opened, and to his astonishment, the older man from the night before walked in, leaning on a cane. Jack's jaw dropped. "You," he exclaimed. The man smiled warmly. "Jack, I didn't get a chance to thank you properly last night. If it weren't for you, I might still be lying on that icy sidewalk." Jack glanced back and forth between the two men, still confused. "Wait, you know each other?" Elon grinned. "Not exactly. But after I saw what you did, I wanted to make sure the man you helped was okay. Turns out he's an investor in one of my projects. Small world, isn't it?" The older man stepped closer, shaking Jack's hand firmly. "What you did for me, it reminded me that kindness still exists. And that's why I agreed to help fund this opportunity for you." Jack was speechless. 4 years he'd been struggling just to survive, and now, because of one simple act of kindness, his entire life was about to change. "I don't know what to say," Jack finally managed, his voice thick with emotion. Elon smiled. "Say you'll take the chance. And when you're back on your feet, pay it forward." Jack nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I will. I promise." As he left the office later that day, Max happily trotting by his side, Jack couldn't stop the smile that spread across his face. For the first time in years he felt like his life had meaning again. And it all started with a simple act of kindness. A new beginning. Jack stood in his new apartment, taking in the modest but cozy space. The walls had been freshly painted, the floors gleamed, and the cupboards were stocked with food, not the kind he'd begged for or scavenged, but real, nutritious food. It felt unreal. Max, his loyal dog, was bounding across the carpet, chasing a squeaky toy that Elon had sent over with the welcome package. For the first time in years, Jack felt safe. He pressed a hand to his chest, trying to steady the mix of emotions coursing through him. This wasn't just a new apartment, it was a new life. His first day at work had been overwhelming but exciting. The team at Tesla had welcomed him warmly, patiently explaining things he didn't understand and offering guidance without hesitation. Jack had expected to feel out of place, but instead he found himself absorbing everything like a sponge. "You've got a knack for problem solving," his supervisor had told him after they fixed a manufacturing issue. "Keep this up and you'll move up the ranks quickly." Hearing that praise lit something in Jack, a spark of confidence he hadn't felt in years. It was more than just words, it was proof that his hard work was being noticed. A surprise message. A few months later, Jack sat on his couch, scrolling through his phone. Max was curled up beside him, his head resting on Jack's lap. Then an email notification popped up. It was from the older man Jack had helped that cold Christmas night. "Jack, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I've been following your journey through Elon and couldn't be prouder of the progress you've made. Your act of kindness changed my life that night, and I hope yours too." Jack stared at the screen, tears welling up. He thought back to those desperate nights on park benches, feeling invisible. He never could have imagined that helping a stranger would lead to this, a second chance at life. But the most surprising part wasn't the new job, the apartment, or even the financial stability. It was the way his mindset had changed. For the first time in years, Jack felt capable. He felt worthy. Paying it forward. As Jack settled into his new life, things continued to improve. He poured himself into his work, learning new skills and earning the respect of his colleagues. With his first paycheck, he bought Max a new bed and donated a portion to the local shelter that had helped him during his toughest times. On weekends, he volunteered at a soup kitchen, quietly serving meals to people who reminded him of himself. One day, while ladling soup into a worn-out cup, he overheard someone say, "People like this give me hope." Jack smiled to himself, realizing that by helping others, he was starting to change more than just his own life. A new opportunity. 1 year after that fateful Christmas night, Jack got an unexpected call from Elon's assistant. "Mr. Musk would like to see you," she said. Jack's heart raced as he walked into Elon's office later that week. Elon greeted him with the same calm demeanor, but this time, there was a twinkle of pride in his eyes. "I've been keeping tabs on you, Jack," Elon said, gesturing for him to sit. "Your supervisor tells me you're one of the hardest workers on the team." Jack shrugged, still humble. "I just don't want to waste this chance." Elon nodded. "And you haven't? Which is why I want to offer you something more." Jack's breath caught as Elon slid a folder across the desk. It wasn't a job offer. This time, it was an invitation to join a leadership training program. "We're expanding our outreach initiatives," Elon explained. "I think you'd be the perfect person to head a new project aimed at providing employment opportunities to those who've been where you once were." Jack was stunned. "Me? Leading a team? Why not?" Elon smiled. "You've lived it. You understand what people need. And you've proven that you're not afraid of hard work." Jack swallowed hard, the weight of the opportunity sinking in. The thought of leading a team was both daunting and thrilling. But most of all, it was a chance to help others the way he had been helped. "I don't know what to say," Jack stammered. "Say you'll think about it," Elon said. "And remember, this is just the beginning. The ripple effect of your actions is already spreading. You've inspired me, Jack, and I know you'll inspire others too." A new chapter begins. That night, Jack sat on his balcony with Max at his feet, looking out at the city lights. He thought about how far he had come, from the cold streets to a warm home, from despair to hope. He realized that while Elon and others had given him opportunities, it was his decision to step up, to help, and to believe in himself that had made all the difference. As he scratched Max behind the ears, Jack whispered, "Tomorrow we start a new chapter." Max barked in agreement, his tail wagging. For the first time in years, Jack felt ready to face whatever came next. He had learned that kindness doesn't just change the lives of others, it can change your own life in ways you never expected. The power of kindness. A journey of transformation. Jack's story is a powerful reminder of how one small act of kindness can ripple out and change everything, not only for the person being helped, but for the person who offers help as well. Jack went from being homeless, feeling unseen and forgotten, to becoming a leader in a company, all because of one selfless gesture on a cold Christmas night. It's a testament to how kindness can shape lives in ways we don't always expect. But the real lesson here isn't just about Jack's success, it's about the potential for change we all carry inside us. Each of us has the power to make a difference, no matter how big or small. Whether it's offering a hand to someone in need, listening to someone's story, or simply showing kindness in everyday situations, these actions can spark something much bigger than we realize. What would you do? So, think about this for a moment. What if you were in Jack's shoes? What if you could help someone today with just a small act of kindness? How might that impact their life, and yours, tomorrow? We want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where a kind act changed your life or someone else's? Share your story in the comments below. Let's talk about how kindness has the power to transform lives. If Jack's journey has inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Like and share this story with your friends. You never know, it might be the reminder someone else needs to take that step forward and believe in themselves. Let's spread the word. Kindness truly changes everything.